One of the absolute coolest things that I've noticed about life is that the more present I am, the better life gets. And when I say that, I'm contrasting the past experiences I've had where I've been very worried about everything. Worried about what's going to come in the future, um, you know, things and resources and even people as necessary, for me and for my life. More so, I would argue, resources. Whether it's financial resources, food, whatever it is, right? But it's interesting because the more I surrender to presence and just being present with life, right? Because when you're thinking about the future, you're going into mind-made material, right? And you're actually going into something that, depending on how you approach it, can be both unconscious and an illusion. Oftentimes, we are used by the seductive autopilot nature of the mind, right? It's like a person goes throughout life in a dreamlike state, and it's only specific things that awaken them to different realizations which bring them back to being present. Actually, just literally as I was saying that, made another connection too. I don't know how accurate this is, but when a child in childhood can actually be present with themselves because they are given the necessary, healthy, safe, and stable environment to be able to do so, rather than being raised in an environment of chaos where there's drama, gossip, unpredictability, the complete opposite of healthy, safe, and stable. They don't really get to be present with themselves. And as a result of not getting to be present with themselves, they don't learn how to be present with life. They learn to get very caught up in the mind and like what ifs and past and future and worrying about everything, rather than being conscious and present with everything. What I've noticed in my experiences is that when I'm present with life, I more easily and readily manifest. It's more so effortless. It's a very divine for sure, but it's a very fascinating process. I've noticed that when I'm present and doing what I enjoy doing, I attract more easily. Whatever it is that I am in alignment with energetically moves towards me easier. But instead, when I am worried and fearful and anxious and depressed and, stuck in the past or, like incessantly worrying about the future, stagnation happens, blockages happen. And I've literally experienced it where, like, I'll be really worrying about something, right? And then I'll remind myself, I'll be like, dude, just be present. Just enjoy this moment. And of course, I have to work through the thought processes of the mind, because the mind is like, well, I can't enjoy this moment because of X, Y, and Z. This is there and I don't want it to be there. That's not here and I want it to be here. We want what we don't have and we don't want what we have sometimes, right? So it's more so just like dying to the present moment, surrendering to the present moment, just allowing, like, for instance, this moment right now. There's nothing missing at all. The mind can get me to believe that there is, because oftentimes it's based in lack and scarcity. But this moment is abundant. There's nothing here that shouldn't be here. And there's nothing that isn't here. Trying to make sure I say that correctly. I think that people understand what I'm saying. What's so interesting is just how healing being present is. And I'm pretty sure that I addressed that in yesterday's video. But the really cool thing about the present moment is that It's just so wildly magical. It is. And what happens is that we can, I would argue so at least, we can always be present. However, the mind is really good at falling back into the seductive, familiar, and comfort nature that is autopilot. Autopilot being everything that it is that we are used to, right? And what I've said before is that what you're used to will use you. This is why autopilot runs for, a majority of people's life, all of their life and everything that they do. It's kind of like you look at it and it's like you look at how society and culture run. People are pretty much moved in a very specific direction without any sense of personal awareness in regards to likes, dislikes, wants, and needs, right? We all do the same thing. Not to say that it's good or bad or right or wrong. It's just more so a matter that it's very automatic. Life, society, and culture are very automatic. It is assumed that people are going to do what they're going to do, which is usually the same thing, right? And this is why presence is so important, because presence allows the experiencer to consciously look at themselves, what they're doing, the people around them, and life from a standpoint of an elevated, well, potentially, depending on how you approach it, but an elevated sense of awareness. And that's really what's required for much more of, I guess, what I'll call a manual way of living. Think about it this way. When you're driving a car, right? You're driving one of two types of car. It's either automatic and you don't have to worry about shifting into a different gear, or it's manual and you have to be aware of, the RPMs and everything and make sure that you shift on time because you could fuck up the engine, right? So, the interesting thing about this is that I would argue, at least, and I've been here before too, a majority of people are living their life driving an automatic car. Everything is automatic, right? There's perhaps a scarcity of introspection, of looking at the self. Which, by the way, looking at the self is not easy. It's not. I'm going to challenge myself on that because that is probably just a belief. Another thing about healing is the deconstructing of beliefs to really look at what's actually there, the self, what's going on, why that belief is in place. A lot of things that I have previously believed are not easy, I'm actually now calling bullshit on, because it's very interesting. Like, when you claim that something is a certain way, for instance, that it is not easy to look at the self, that's really just a belief, right? And it probably came from something that I learned. This is, again, why, of course, understanding what it is that you're learning and knowing where it is that comes from is also absolutely crucial. I'm very interested in stepping outside of autopilot, being much more present with myself, with life, with things, with people, and building based upon that foundation. And also more so because a far majority of the entire past part of my life before where I am now it was all autopilot. It was all dissociation, out of body, an inability to remain present with myself and the people that I was having experiences with. And so with that really came a very strong sense of longing for life and being alive. And it's a very interesting thing to, when you are alive, long for something that you already are, right? But it's also because, in part, might get a little bit dark here, in experiences of dissociation, I have felt at least like halfway dead. Like, just not like in, I don't know, frozen, you know? Like, it's just, like, not there. And it's easy to feel that way when, you know, you're dissociated, because you're just so fucked out of your body that you're not able to be present with yourself. And I guess that with that, it's like you're in a state of deterioration, right? Because the food and the nutrients that is life is in the present moment. It is being presently aware and conscious of everything in the moment. You, yourself, the people around you, or the lack thereof in terms of people around you. Maybe there's nobody around you, and that's okay. It's not a matter of right or wrong or good or bad. But when you're present, there is, I would argue so at least, there is more life in your eyes, right? There is a shine there, right? Divinity, God, presence, the richness of life, you know? And I'll end off by saying this, because I think that it's a very fascinating thing. There might be things that I enjoy doing more than other things in life, right? However, I am starting to experience every single moment of life as, it's like, there is no moment that is greater than any other moment. And it's a very interesting experience. It's a very awakening and enlivening, I think that that's a word, reigniting, vitality, rebirthing, re-seeing, renewing, redoing. It's all of that kind of stuff, and it's absolutely wild and magical.